Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Welcome to another episode of the Comic Boys Show. Now, I promised everyone a certain episode on Instagram and other places. That episode will be coming. I just got to record it at some point, so that'll come at some point. However, based on a conversation I had with Alon yesterday, we've decided to do this one, and that means that, and so the topic of which is going to be um, is Christopher Nolan overrated? There's your little teaser there. And we decided let's have this conversation because what's better for YouTube and podcast apps than that? I'm joined as always by Alon, who is the legendary is one of the hosts of the show, or I don't know. At this point, we just make up new titles every day.
Yeah.
So, do you want to tell everyone where they can find you?
Y'all can find me at alon.s54 on Instagram, and you can find us on comicboys_ on Instagram and all other social medias if you want to see some good content.
So, should I continue the trend of just saying there's something big coming and then just keep teasing things out like I have been for like the last 7 times we've done this?
What big thing is coming?
All of the new stuff we're doing.
Yeah.
Which I kind of tease and then just ignore because everything gets delayed because not everything works on my schedule.
Yeah.
But no, big things are coming. Trust us.
Yes, indeed.
It's gonna be glorious. Yeah, we've got some big things coming. We're almost at the end of the tunnel there. Seismic change takes a long time to do. I didn't realize that until I had to actually execute on it. So stay tuned for that. Yeah.
Nice.
And you can find me on Instagram and all that stuff at KhalilJamal03. That's on the screen if you're watching on YouTube. And if you're watching or listening on podcast apps, then you can find it in the description of the podcast. And if you're watching on TikTok and you think I sound like a girl, you can go cry yourself to sleep. By the way, I have friends. See, I'm talking to a friend right now. There you go. So I do have friends.
Gang shit.
That's another misconception, which, is not true. I also have a great life. People don't know this.
Yeah.
Underrated stuff. What was the other thing they said? Oh, yeah, I'm a nerd. Okay, yeah, that's just true and a compliment more than anything, but,
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with being a nerd.
I don't know.
It's like when you call
most successful
someone,
people are nerds, so I don't know.
It's like when you call someone a dog. That's not really an insult. That's actually kind of nice. Dogs are sweet animals.
But I don't know if when you're calling someone a dog, you're calling them in terms of the biggest sweet animal. It's okay. We won't have a conversation on that because I think if you say, "Oh yeah, you're a dog," I don't know if you're really saying it.
No, not like, oh, I got that dog in me. I'm him. Not in that way. Like I've been called like, oh, you behave like a dog, or oh.
I don't know. I don't know if that's what I'm trying to say. You're sweet, but okay.
No. I'm not trying to say. I'm trying to say like. So someone in one of my classes said like, "Oh, men are dogs." DOGS, not like, "Oh, I got that dog in me. I'm him." Like Stefan Diggs on the sideline. And so I'm like, "Oh, thanks. Dogs are great animals. I love them."
Yeah. Oh, I guess that was supposed to be an insult. Although I would have gone with pig if I'm being honest. If that was the point I was trying to get across. But I don't know. That feels like a very weird thing to say. But anyways, we don't have to. What we should do? We should have a whole podcast devoted on how to properly insult people.
Yeah.
Because I think the art of insult is kind of lost, and I think people just kind of say things and hope they're insults.
Yeah, people will say anything.
We'd be really good. We should teach a class on how to insult people properly, right?
Yeah, people
because
will
now
say anything.
There's just insults are so lame now.
Yeah, that's true.
I don't know. This is so coming soon. How to insult people properly.
Yes,
it's gonna be the greatest thing we've ever done.
Yes,
it's gonna help society so people can insult in a more civilized and more effective way, and instead of just saying you're a nerd and have no friends when I clearly have lots of friends.
Yeah.
Probably. But it's okay. Anyways, I'm not going to talk about this random person on the internet anymore because giving them more time would just make me remember how much fun I was having responding to them. Oh, you should check us out on TikTok too. We have that at comicboys_ like everything else. And you can help me. You can comment mean things too if you want.
Yes. Right.
It
Anything
really
you want.
it really like gives me some motivation. So like I would actually appreciate that. But with that being said, we've done a 5-minute intro. I think it's time to talk about things that we're going to actually talk about. So we both seen Oppenheimer. You made a review.
Mhm.
I refused to talk about it. I'm
What did
talking
you
about
think
it
of the
now, I
film?
guess.
Let the audience know. What did you think of the film?
I don't want the audience to know what I thought of the film, though.
Why?
Like, okay, we'll talk about it more. It was fine. I thought it was a good movie. It was better than Barbie. Like, I
Did you see them both in one day?
yeah, I saw one at 11:45 a.m. and I saw the other one at like 10:30 p.m.
Okay.
Yeah. Now I'm gonna expose you a little here, just to kind
Okay.
of okay, because we don't really have a. Typically, we agree on a lot of things, so it's really hard. We don't have a format to kind of like rip out each other's throats.
Okay.
So what I did, I took the liberty of finding an Instagram comment you liked or an Instagram post you liked. Okay. And I'm going to use it against you right now to start off this argument. Because basically, my coming out, like when I listen to people talk about Oppenheimer, which was not a bad movie, and I think I should I have to keep emphasizing it's not a bad movie. I didn't think it was a bad movie. But the problem is people once again are doing this thing they like to do, which is they're taking one movie, which was again a good movie. I'm not disputing that, but acting like it is the crowning achievement in the history of cinema. So there's a post, and this is what it says. Okay.
Can I just get something off my chest in a little defense?
Well, then let me go through my first point. Then you can
All
go.
right.
Then you go. Okay.
Okay. Okay.
Because this is a quote from the post. Oppenheimer is being called the best and most important film of the century. Okay,
Yeah.
now, not of the year, not of the decade, not of the last 2 decades, not of the last 30 years. No, 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 the last century. So, do you know how long a century is? I can tell you for a fact that it is not the best movie of the last decade. I don't even think it's the best Nolan movie ever. It's definitely not the best. And then we can go into the most important thing in a minute, but it is like if we were to just talk about the best, I don't think there's anyone saying I don't think Christopher Nolan would say it's his best movie. I don't think he would say that. It's I think it was a good movie, a really good movie, probably one of the best of the year. Easily one of the best of the year, actually. But is it the best of the century?
It is
I
the
don't
most
know.
important of the century, but it's not the best of the century.
I would argue Schindler's List was a more important movie, but
Schindler's List and Lawrence of Arabia are the best movies of the century, but Oppenheimer has a case for the most important film of the century.
well, sorry, what I meant to say was, and I'm just gonna rephrase this. Schindler's List is the most important World War movie of the century. I'm not even talking about other movies. I'm just saying in terms of World War and World War II movies, especially. The most important one is Schindler's List, not the one about how they made the big explodey bomb.
Yeah.
That's my personal belief. And again, I think a lot of this is belief based. However, I think it's a little bit hype. Can you disagree with the fact that it's hyperbolic to call it the best and most important film of the century? The century is a long time, by the way, a lot of years.
It is a tad hyperbolic to call it the best film of the century, but it's not hyperbolic at all to call it one of the most important film of the century. I think it has a very strong case for it.
Do you know how many years a century is?
100 years.
So 100 years ago. So pretty much the entire history of modern, at least modern, even pre-modern film. Like that would have been like in the 1920s, because 100. Anyways, that is ridiculous.
I don't think so. I think it's important because it shows kind of the consequences of Oppenheimer's invention. I mean, you saw it at the end where he was visualizing the future and how nations will, increase their nuclear arsenals. That could really happen anytime. I spoke to somebody, one of my close friends. He saw the film. I told him like, yo, what did you? Because I went to go watch it with him. I asked him, hey, what did you think? Like, what did you think of the movie? And he's like, that it was scary, obviously, but it's important to understand, you know, the consequences of what Oppenheimer's invention was. I mean, obviously he did it because the U.S. wanted to end World War II, but it led to bad consequences in the future, and that's why it's important to kind of understand, you know, why it was bad, what happened, and to be like, this is a very real possibility of things that can happen.
It was a you are aware that Oppenheimer did actually happen in real life, right?
I
Like
know.
they actually did bomb those places. The bomb was
Yeah, I know.
created. So I just needed like the thing I don't understand. The other thing I don't understand, which is like kind of a separate point, but I'll make it anyways because why not? The whole concept of this being a very scary movie is kind of a little bit mind blowing. It was a scary, like it was a I guess a creepy movie to some extent. However, I think when you know the ending of a movie, it's a little bit harder to be scared by that, unless the only thing you're scared of was like, what if he does the thing he sometimes does, where he like M Night Shyamalan twisted and it's like, just kidding, this is another dimension, and they were stopped by they never built the bomb. Like that was really the only level of like, oh my god, what is the twist going to be? If that was like the level of scary, at least that I felt.
Well, I watched it in IMAX, so obviously the sound's a lot different, but the way Nolan did, obviously Nolan is someone who like very heavily depends on kind of sound and like those kinds of technical things to, and I think he just wanted to do it like the audience was really there at the Trinity test, or that one scene where Oppenheimer was speaking to the people at Los Alamos, where everything went quiet. That was, to me, that was scary. And the ending as well, knowing what Oppenheimer was visualizing, knowing that's something that could very much happen.
Now, again, I want to just because I feel like I got to make this clear just multiple times. I do truly think this was a really good movie. Like I don't I feel like I have to reemphasize that like there was a lot of things where I'm like, oh my god, that was really well done. The acting was superb, by the way, in the movie as well.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm not trying to say it's a bad movie. Like I want everyone just to clearly understand. I loved this movie, and I thought they did like one of the coolest things I think they did, which it kind of like what they did to a different extent, but they did in The Last Jedi. Again, we're just talking about film here because I know you have opinions on, and I know a lot of people have opinions on The Last Jedi. But anyways, what they did was they did the thing with the bomb where it was silent and then it got loud, and I think that was genius. Like I
Yeah.
do think that was amazing, and I love when they do that kind of thing because then you kind of get at ease, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh my god, right? Like I thought that was genius. I thought that was perfect. However, I think when you have people say like, and then I'm gonna come back to a comment you made actually when we were texting about the movie, and you
Mm-hmm.
said, "quote," and I'm quoting you here. He's one of the best directors of all time, easily,
Yeah.
and that was where I kind of had the idea of okay, well, we need to talk about this man being overrated. Like Nolan is great, but would you call Tarantino one of the best directors easily? I
Yeah.
wouldn't.
I
I
would.
don't think he's one of the best directors easily. I think there's a lot of directors who are really, really good. I think Nolan has, you look at the Nolan films, Tenet was awful. Like in terms of Nolan scale, it was awful. The Dark Knight Rises was lower on that Nolan scale, made a lot of money, but it was lower on that Nolan scale. Um, I
Dunkirk.
think I think personally, Dunkirk, I think Dunkirk was middle tier received. I don't think it was nearly as well received as some other movies, you know,
Inception.
including this one. Hmm?
Inception.
Incep- Inception is on a different tier. The Dark Knight is on a different tier. We're not disagreeing with that, or at least I'm not disagreeing with that. But I think when you throw around easily one of the greatest of all, or easily, I think you said one of the greatest, right? Not the greatest.
One
Yeah,
of, yeah.
he's easily one of the best directors of all time, easily. Yeah. So I don't know if you could throw him up there, right? When you look at some of the other directors, I don't think you could just say easily. I think he's definitely an amazing director. I think he's made amazing movies. I think this is an amazing movie. I think The Dark Knight obviously is an amazing movie. I think Interstellar is an amazing movie. I think the Inception is an amazing movie. I think Tenet was very M Night Shyamalan. I did not love the way that ended. I don't love it more and more. as it kind of sits in my brain. But I think Dunkirk was, probably one of his worst movies, like one of his worst movies, kind of in that Dark Knight onward era. I mean, again, I don't. Maybe I'm missing something, but I don't. I think the praise he's getting, like he's this legendary director when he's had great movies, but also some not so great movies. And I think you can't just throw around these things. Most important movie for this one, or greatest director ever, or Dark Knight is the greatest superhero movie ever. Like we throw always when we talk about Nolan, it's always the accolades of like he made the greatest superhero movie ever. I mean, I think we both agree that Pattinson's Dark or Batman movie is in the on the same like in the same like kind of headspace as the Dark Knight. Maybe it isn't better, but it's not very far off where you could say he may right. Like I think I would argue the Winter Soldier's in that same kind of upper room of superhero movies, right? I think you would probably agree with that. I don't think there must disagreement, but I don't think like we act when we talk about him like he's made the world's greatest movies every single time, and he's never like he. I don't think that's true. I think Batman Begins is getting actually gets less love than it deserves. I think it's a great movie. Again, do I think it's one of the greatest superhero movies of all time? No, but I also think that Captain America 1, the Captain America the First Avenger, gets a lot of hate it doesn't deserve either, because I think that, again, much like Batman Begins, is a great superhero movie, right? I don't know. I just don't see it. Again, Inception, I think, is probably his best movie. I don't. It'd be between Inception and Interstellar in my mind for his best movie. I think The Dark Knight's probably right underneath that. But I don't know. I just feel like we give too many of these, like just throwing out these things when we talk about him, when he does have an amazing track record. He's a good track record. He made a bunch of good movies, but it's not like he has this legendary track record.
I think that people tend to say that Nolan is one of the best is because of the ideas of the film. Like Inception, you're dreaming within a dream, within a dream, within a dream, within a dream. Interstellar, different planets have times passing at different time passes by through different rates. Dunkirk is based on a true story about, but I think that the reason why a lot of people, I know you say you didn't enjoy it, but I think one of the reasons why a lot of people enjoyed it is because of how real he made it felt, as if like the audience was actually on the beaches of Dunkirk during World War II. Tenet was Tenet was, it was pretty good. Obviously, it was kind of. I mean, every director has his flaws. I mean, Tarantino, in my opinion, one of the greatest. He had like at least one movie that's not.
Death Proof is the worst movie he's ever made by far.
Death Proof is not up to par with what all the other films he's made. And Tenet was pretty good, but it's not up there. And then you have Oppenheimer, which Nolan managed to create that into such a compelling, powerful story, while also giving the audience the most real experience of the atom bomb. And not only that, the whole kind of this whole McCarthyism era, and the whole story that he obviously created based on the real events. I think it's just mostly because of his ideas. That's why he's regarded as big time.
So I have a question for you.
Yeah.
And I know this is gonna sound demeaning. It's not, trust me. This is more for the audience than anything else, but I want you to answer it. How many people are involved in the sound of a movie?
Thousands.
Lots. Lots of the answers.
More than hundreds of thousands, probably.
Probably not that many.
Tens on thousands. I don't know.
But yeah. Anyways, lots of people. That was the point I was trying to get across. Who's his cinematographer?
For
everything, basically. Dunkirk, Interstellar, I think he was.
I think it was different. I'm not so sure. Or
no,
Roger Deakins, maybe? Or no, Roger Deakins did something else.
Hoyt van Hoytma.
Yeah.
That's been his cinematographer since for Interstellar, Tenet, Dunkirk, Oppenheimer. Yeah. I think just those ones.
Mm-hmm.
Interstellar, Dunkirk, Oppenheimer, Tenet. Yeah, those are the ones. And he also did Spectre and a few other things. Anyways, so my point is this. Like when you say something like what Dunkirk did. Again, I personally didn't like Dunkirk. I don't like war movies. That's a whole nother conversation for another day, right? But when we talk about things like, he made it sound good, it wasn't really all him, right? Like, for example, I think the interesting combination in the conversation, which always is weirdly always is, and again, I don't know why this is, but this is just how it is. The thing that people always do is they always like to compare people, right? When you're trying to make like an argument. So let's look at someone. If you're saying he's one of the greatest directors of all time, I think Stanley Kubrick is miles and bounds ahead of him. Would you disagree with that?
No.
I think 2001: A Space Odyssey is better than any Nolan movie. I don't know if there's any disagreement from you on that.
I mean, I don't know. Me personally, Oppenheimer is like one of the best films I've ever seen in my life, and that might be a very, very, very sizzling hot take, but I'm willing to stand by it. So I don't know.
I think you look at, like, I think at least if you want to talk about important and complex, and because like I know you love to go to that, and because you do this very often, right? Is you like to go to it's the difficulty, it's the complexity, right? Like you did that with when we're talking, we're kind of roasting the Rotten Tomatoes critic scores for Mission Impossible, right? You went to the political side of it, right? Which again,
Yeah.
I understand that, obviously. However, if you want to talk about the innovative storytelling, like you talk about like a true legend, 2001: A Space Odyssey, A Clockwork Orange, The Shining, Full Metal Jacket, right? Like these are legendary films, right?
Mhm.
Alfred Hitchcock, right? We're good. I think we have to put him above Nolan, right?
Yeah.
So, and I think the argument for Scorsese being above him is there as well.
Yeah.
Akira Kurosawa probably up there as well, right? Like I think Spielberg, obviously, I forgot Spielberg. Spielberg has to be there too, right? So, like, when my point is though, now you get to a point where I've just named 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people.
I think Nolan's up there with them. I don't know in what order. He's probably like not in between any of them, but I think he's up there.
So, what is
Obviously,
Nolan's best movie?
in my opinion, Oppenheimer.
So, Oppenheimer. I don't know if you can really look at Oppenheimer and say it's a better movie than 2001 or The Shining, or maybe The Shining, but
Well,
Clockwork Orange.
you don't have to base it off that criteria. I think what puts Nolan up there is that he created Inception, Interstellar, Oppenheimer, Dunkirk, the Dark Knight trilogy, and all those movies collectively. Like I think that puts him in very very elite company. Obviously, I don't really know yet if any of those movies are better than what they've made, but I think that that collection of those films Nolan has made, those were all amazing films that have influenced, pop culture greatly. Um, so it's just a collection of those great movies that puts him up there.
Like, because, like, I don't know. I look at it, right? And I'm like, okay, let's look at space movies. So you got Interstellar, 2001, and Close Encounters of a Third Kind, right?
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, Spielberg, Kubrick, and Nolan. I think Interstellar is the bottom of the three.
I don't know. I'd say it's probably number two. I think yes, 2001: Space Odyssey is the best space movie out there, but I think Interstellar has a very good case for being that second
Or
place.
ET. I don't even think I would put over. Like, I guess probably the better Spielberg space movie is probably ET, which
Yeah,
in hindsight,
ET's a bit better.
there's an ET poster somewhere here. ET was over on that wall,
The
but yeah.
extraterrestrial.
But like again, ET, there's Close Encounters. Like I think again, we're playing kind of with minutia here, but I think that I would put ET ahead of Interstellar. Again, I don't dislike it. It's been a while. Actually, I want to watch Interstellar again because it's been a minute since I've seen it. But I don't know. I just see those kind of things. Then I look at like The Dark Knight, and I'm like, well, it's a great movie. Again, I don't think it's a perfect movie. I think people have kind of overvalued it. I think Jurassic Park is better than The Dark Knight, personally. The first Jurassic Park. I don't know if you would agree with that one.
They're a bit different, so it's hard to compare them.
And you know what I'll do? I'll throw in something here which I think will be interesting. If you looked at Saving Private Ryan, Schindler's List, and Dunkirk, and Oppenheimer. I think more. At least I know you're going to say Oppenheimer over those ones. But would you
Over
do it?
Schindler's List, I'm not putting Oppenheimer over that. Like, with all due respect to Oppenheimer, I'm not putting
So you're not
that
even
over
doing that.
Schindler's
So
List.
would you do it over Save? I'm assuming you put over Saving Private Ryan.
I don't know. I gotta watch Saving Private Ryan again because it's been a minute since I've seen that as well.
Because I think it. Well, then if that's that point, if you're saying two Spielberg movies are being put above that, above Oppenheimer, and above, I'm assuming we're not putting Dunkirk over any of those movies, right?
Well, Saving Private Ryan is more like a kind of story and emotions, and then Dunkirk is more atmospheric. You know what I mean? Like when I went to see Dunkirk in the fucking like 6 7 years ago, whenever that movie came out, I
2016, I think, which is crazy.
16. I think it came out the same summer as Spider-Man: Homecoming,
I think
if
it
I'm
was.
not
I
mistaken.
think it was 16. I'll double check, but I think it was.
But when I went to
It's
watch
17.
Dunkirk,
Sorry.
yeah, 17. When I went to watch Dunkirk, I literally felt like I was on the beaches out there with how they designed that film. But then Saving Private Ryan was more of just an like emotional film for me. So I gotta just reevaluate the two again and see where they land.
Okay, so then I'm gonna do something which could get me in a lot of trouble, but it's okay. I don't care at this point.
All right.
It so I'll again. I don't agree with you on Dunkirk. However, I didn't actually watch it in a theater, so maybe that's why.
Yeah.
Um, I think because it looked way too loud for me to pay money to watch in a theater.
It
Like I
was
was not interested in
it
that.
was very loud.
But I hated that trailer. That trailer pissed me off so much. But I think so. Then what I'll say is this though: what's the difference between Dunkirk and Avatar? They're both
Uh,
atmospheric movies. They're both movies where you have to kind of watch them in theaters to get the full vibe. All of that stuff is true. However, I don't think I would say, like, I don't know if I could say the difference between the two.
mhm.
I don't know. Do you disagree with that?
Well, obviously the genre of the films are a lot different, but obviously also Dunkirk doesn't rely on special effects as much as Avatar.
But it relies on I'm talking about the atmosphere, but the atmosphere of this 3D stuff when Avatar came out, and people forget this all the time. But the reason it made so much money was because the 3D effects were were revolutionary at the time. Like that was
Mhm.
never done before, right? Like the
Sure.
way they did it. So are we putting those in the same sentence?
Putting what in the same sentence?
Avatar and Dunkirk, because they're both atmospheric movies.
I don't know. I mean, they're totally different from each other. That's the issue
But I
in
almost
terms of genre and such.
but they're atmospheric, right? Like my point is like do you think the Dunkirk story and acting and all that this stuff is far superior to that of Avatar? Or do you think the atmosphere is the thing that separates both of them, Avatar to being the highest grossing movie or one of the highest grossing movies ever, and Dunkirk to being, a better film than just an average movie with a lot of noise?
Well, acting, I don't know because Dunkirk was there wasn't that much dialogue in the film.
But the cast was
Um,
stacked, by the way.
the
Just
cast the cast was stacked, but there was little to no dialogue in the film. Not little to no. There was just not as it was like basically a how can I say like there wasn't a lot of talking in the film. There even in the quieter parts where there's no shooting going on, people weren't talking. Like it was a very quiet movie. But then when it got to the warfare, yeah, it got loud. Other than that, they weren't talking that much. Actually, you know what? Let's look it up. Why was there not a lot of dialogue in Dunkirk?
probably because you want everyone to hear the noise.
Why was there not a lot of dialogue in Dunkirk?
I didn't realize how many movies Cillian Murphy's been in um for Nolan.
He's been in several. He
He's been
obviously
in
was
all the
in
Batmans. He's been in
Dunkirk,
Inception, Dunkirk. He's been in
Oppenheimer.
Oppenheimer. He wasn't in Tenet, I don't think.
Michael Caine was
No.
in Tenet. Michael Caine's been in almost every Nolan film until Oppenheimer.
Yeah, he was in Batman. I do
He
remember
was in
that.
Batman. He was in Inception. He was in Interstellar. He was in Dunkirk. He was in Tenet for a little bit, but he wasn't in this one.
I'm surprised. I'm surprised he wasn't in it. Even if you just threw him in for a little bit.
It says
Yes.
here,
Yeah.
um, the empathy for the characters has nothing to do with the story. I did not want to go through the dialogue, tell the story of my characters. The problem is not who they are, or who they pretend to be, or where they come from.
But like again, I don't disagree with like I'm just saying that cast is stacked. That was kind of like like a off comment that wasn't like necessarily part of the point I was trying to make. But I do think it's interesting at least that like
Mhm.
we talk about we put Avatar in one category and we put Dunkirk in a completely different one. When I'd argue the what you're trying to argue is the draw for Dunkirk is the same thing people argued and we saw it being practical as the draw for Oppenheimer, and even more so if we want to really like put a need like a knife in that. If the narrative that they were trying to make for Dunkirk was you have to watch this in theaters because of the sound and all this other stuff, how come Avatar made, you know, one of the most amounts of money ever and Dunkirk made 526 million?
Well, Dunkirk is a war movie. War movies are very hard to watch, and Avatar is more kind of like, um, it's obviously not a real story. So that's I think why. Also, I just read an article from 2017, and it said that Dunkirk was actually about to be a silent film, but then then Nolan's wife said like, no, we should probably have dialogue in this, and then they wrote a 76-page script, which is not a lot. But yeah, Dunkirk was about to be a silent movie.
Honestly, maybe that would have wait silent as in no
No,
dialogue
no dialogue
or
whatsoever.
or silent as in no noise.
No, no dialogue at all. Like no
Yeah.
script. I think that could have been pretty powerful if it was like a no dialogue film. But even with little dialogue in Dunkirk, I think it was pretty powerful as well.
I don't know. I just feel like I feel like we're at the point with Nolan, right? Where we just we talk about his movies like they're the greatest things ever made, but I don't think they are. And I think that's not again, this isn't me saying no, like I hope you're not getting from this me saying Nolan sucks because that's not what I'm
No,
saying.
no, 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 no.
Like I love Nolan movies. Obviously, I think Nolan is a great director. I
Mhm,
think Nolan has had, I think he's kind of had some amazing talent in his movies too. You know, I
mhm,
think he's helped bring people up from, like kind of bring people into the spotlight. John David Washington, obviously in Tenet, I think was really brought to spotlight. Robert Pattinson, to a large extent was really, I think in the public's mind, washed of the Twilight thing and ready to go into Batman because of Tenet. Obviously, he did stuff pre Tenet, post Twilight, but I don't think those were. But I think that was really the first. Hey, look, this dude is different, right? And so I think there was help there. I think you know, I give honestly, I'll be honest with you. I give him a lot of credit for those Batman movies because he understood we have a Batman who no one's going to remember or care about, and we're going to make this about the villains. And I think that's the smart. Like I think Batman itself is a boring character. I think all the characters around Batman are the interesting ones. I think what he did with Batman was genius. I think it
mhm,
was something which, you know, honestly, you have not seen since Adam West because what they did with Batman in this and what they did with Batman and what they did with Batman in the Dark Knight, what they did with Batman before is in the Adam West era was they made it about a little bit more about the villains, right?
mhm.
And you gave the villains more of a personality. I think you can argue the Schumacher Batman movies went too far with the villain personality, but also went very far with the Batman personality, right?
Yeah.
I think when you get someone who's maybe less of a like I don't want to make like say bad things about people. Like Christian Bale is not a like if you ask someone what do you remember Christian Bale for? Even though he was Batman, I don't think that's the first thing people are going to think of.
People are gonna say Patrick Bateman, and I understand. I understand why.
What do you mean?
People are gonna say that they'll remember Christian Bale for Patrick Bateman.
Oh yeah, America's right. My mind just was like, wait a second. Yeah.
No,
America's
no,
Psycho.
that's what they're gonna
Yeah.
remember it for.
Well, I think I feel like you would get a number of answers before you got Batman, but I also think that worked in those movies. Like I
Mhm,
think that was something that worked because you had like I think The Dark Knight, if you had Batman as someone who's an overwhelming presence, I don't think Heath Ledger would have been able to be the star like he was, right?
mhm.
Like I think I think you saw this, and I know you didn't watch it, but like with Secret Invasion, when you have too many people trying to be the star of a show, or a movie or anything, you end up with an issue, right? Like I
Yeah.
think, though, actually, I'll be honest with you, a weird thing that directors have to do, and I think it's something which they don't get enough credit for having to do, is you have to be able to basically, find a way to get big actors who are willing to play small parts, right? And
Yeah.
what I mean by that is you have to be okay with not overshadowing what you want to focus on, right? Like the ego management part of directing is real, right? Like, you got to say, hey, look, I understand you're a big name. We need you. I think, and again, we're gonna talk a little bit more about Oppenheimer to make this point, and whatever. I think this was Robert Downey Jr.'s best role out, like excluding Iron Man, because I think it was the first time where I looked at his character and I didn't say that's Robert Downey Jr. or that's Iron Man, right? Like those thoughts never came to my mind. And honestly, again, Nolan deserves a ton of credit for that, because I'll be honest with you, and I think you probably were in the same thing. I don't think you thought you could ever see Robert Downey Jr. on the screen again and not think Iron Man instantly, right?
Mhm.
Like I think Tom Cruise is one of those guys who, he'll forever be Ethan Hunt, right? Like, he played the Ethan Hunt type character before he played Ethan Hunt. He's going to play him after he plays Ethan Hunt. Like, I think at the end of the day, when you look at The Rock, you see this, and I think this was probably, like, I think Robert Downey Jr. doesn't get nearly enough credit because I think he had some lines in that movie as well that he delivered perfectly. But I think that was Nolan, because I think Robert Downey Jr. would not have, I don't know if he would have done that without Nolan being there, right? Like I think you had, like, the fact that you can have Tom Hardy in your movie and have him basically say no lines is crazy to me.
Yeah.
Not in a bad way, but in a great way, right?
Yeah.
Like the fact you could have someone like that, the fact that you could have him be the star of a movie while being like his mouth being covered, right? Like as Bane, obviously. That's incredible to me.
Yeah. I
So I
think I
don't
think I think come Oscar season, Robert Downey Jr. will be nominated for Best Supporting Actor for this role.
I mean, I would hope so, because I do truly believe, like, the fact that, like, again, Emily Blunt, Matt Damon, Robert Downey Jr., Cillian Murphy, Alden, Aaron Rich, um, who else is
Kenneth
in this
Branagh,
movie?
Casey Affleck,
Kenneth
um,
Branagh, Casey Affleck, um,
Ben
other
Safdie,
people. Yep, yep.
um,
Who
Dane
else?
DeHaan.
Florence Pugh. I forgot about her. She was in that movie.
Yeah.
But like, that's my point, right? Like, look at those Tom Jenkins. Like you just have names in this movie, and some of them, Dane DeHaan,
Jason Clarke.
post Venom or Spider Man, Jack Quaid.
Yeah.
Like, you know, you have all of these dudes. Remy Malik was in. I completely forgot Remy Malik was in the movie.
Mhm.
He was in the movie. He like, but that's what I mean though. It's like that's
Gary
that's
Oldman,
wait, who is he?
President Harry Truman.
Oh my god, you're right. Wow. But like that's my point. It's like, how can you, like, can you really sell Gary Oldman on a, hey, you're gonna be like, basically,
You're gonna have a few lines. You're gonna have 3 minutes of screen time, and you're gonna play President Harry Truman. Are you in?
and he said yes, apparently. Like, but
Yeah.
that's my point, right? Like, that's incredible, by the way. Like, that's something that's
And
very hard
they
to do.
covered up his face. Like you couldn't identify Gary Oldman in that. Like no way.
Although Gary Oldman has a history of being covered, having his face covered up. So
It's
I
like
don't.
what they did to Colin Farrell, but I mean, obviously, you could probably see a bit of Gary Oldman, but on first glance, you probably wouldn't know who he was. The average moviegoer.
I didn't know it was him.
Yeah,
And I'm not the
exactly,
average moviegoer.
exactly. You see, so Nolan was like, you're gonna have a few lines, you're gonna have a few minutes of screen time. We're gonna make you unrecognizable. You're playing President Harry Truman. Are you in? And then Oldman was probably like, yeah, let's do it.
But like, that's my point. Is like, you had Jack Quaid, who, although in hindsight, kind of was Jack Quaid in a lot of ways. Like, he didn't feel like he was that. Like, he felt out of place in that movie. But like, still, I think that's something, like, being able to basically make actors okay with that, and also be able to thrive like that, right? Because there are times where you have an actor, right, who's just there as a name, and it's obvious and it doesn't work, right?
Mhm.
That's not an uncommon thing to do. It's like, oh my god, look, it's that guy, right? Like, I can't think of one off the top of my head.
Josh Hartnett as well was in it.
Right, but like, yeah, but I'm saying like, I actually, why can't I think of any random actors who just show up and just like are names?
Is Jack Quaid in any way related to Dennis Quaid?
I don't think so.
I
I
think
don't
that might
know.
be his son. I don't know.
I don't think so. But or maybe I don't know.
I'm trying to think who else was in the movie.
Or maybe you're right. I think you're right actually. I don't know, but you're probably. But like my point, I just went through IMDb and there's nothing, no one else there. So,
Hmm.
but either way, that's like again, like being like again, like I think it's you have to give no. I think that some things Nolan should get credit for are things like Robert Downey Jr. not seeming like Iron Man,
Mhm.
right? Like that's a hard thing to do. I mean, again, we can't act like Robert Downey Jr. is the greatest like versatility wise actor ever, right? But he understood how to use him and he used him perfectly. Robert Downey Jr. was like awesome in that movie.
100%.
I think he's probably the best part of that movie, in my opinion. But I don't know. I just think that there's a lot of stuff there. But I just think like, and I know I'm commenting this, and I know we're supposed to talk how Nolan's overrated, but I just think it's not like it's not because he's overrated, right? Like I think he's a great director. I think Oppenheimer was a great movie. Again, I loved it so much more than Barbie. Also, like the thing I'm going to go on a little bit of a rant here, but the thing I always tell you and I tell everyone,
I would love to hear your review of Barbie, by the way.
oh, don't worry, we'll do a little bit of that at the end. We'll do a little bit of that at the end. Don't worry. Because I'm not going to talk about it at any other point, so I might as well.
I'm excited.
Yeah. So no, but so the thing is, I've told you that, and you've heard this from me countless times on podcasts and not on podcasts, because I'll say this, to anyone who will listen. 3-hour movies suck. They aren't, most times they aren't deserved. I hate them. I don't have the attention span for 3-hour movies. Stop giving me 3-hour movies, right? And I know you've heard this. I know most people who listen to this, if they've heard me before, have heard that. But what I would say is this: that was a movie. It did not feel 3 hours long. Like again, when you have a movie, and I think the thing is this: Endgame felt 3 hours long.
Mhm.
It was long and draggy and badly toned and all of that stuff. By the way, that's something when directing matters. When you have a movie that's badly paced and it feels wrong, because the director's supposed to say, hold up, that's wrong. Let's make that better. Because, but that's another thing, right?
Yeah.
I think when you have a movie that's 3 hours long, and I believe you have to deserve a 3-hour movie. And what I mean by that is you have to show, look, we have a rationale, we have a reason that we're making the movie as long as it is, right? Not everyone gets a 3-hour movie, because 3-hour movies should be something reserved for the best of the best, right?
Yeah.
Like I think Endgame deserved a 3-hour movie. You can argue Avatar deserved the 3-hour movie. I don't think it did, but I understand the argument, right? This movie, I went into it saying, I don't think this deserves to be a 3-hour movie. I'm not, before I even watched it, right? Because I don't think Nolan's done any, like, I don't think there's enough evidence that this story is worth 3 hours of my time.
Mhm.
I was wrong. And again, the fact that I went into a historical drama, because that's what this movie is, it's a historical drama, and I did not feel bored out of my mind at any point in that movie, it is really incredible, right? Like it didn't feel like, why did they make that joke? This scene doesn't require a joke. Like that kind of stuff. Again, this is not me taking shots at Marvel, because I would never do such a thing. But when you, I mean, I would take shots at Endgame, but I think when you have someone making a joke when everyone has just died, then maybe it's not the right time to make a joke. This movie didn't do that. Also, there's like a lot of just random great symbolism, like when they had that scene in the room where he's naked, and it's because it's like they're exposing him, and so he feels naked, whatever. Like all the cool random things like that happen, and I think that's like, again, that stuff which makes, again, I love this movie. I can't emphasize that enough at this point. I just don't think we should be jumping to, this is the most important movie and best movie ever made, because I don't think that's true. I watched 2001 and I think that's better. I watched, a number of movies I think it's better. Do I think it's the best movie? I actually, you know what? I'll go to a point. You know what I'll do? I'll make the point. I think it's the best movie since COVID.
It could be.
I think it is. I don't. Well, you think it's the best movie of the century, so I think you
I
definitely.
never said that. I think the best movie of the century is Lawrence of Arabia and Schindler's List.
But you like the post that said it was.
Yeah,
So therefore, that's your take. That's
I
your opinion.
mean, I
Because if
think
you
it's.
like a post, then it has to be your opinion.
Uh huh.
Um, no, but like I think it's probably the best pre-COVID, post-COVID, sorry, movie. Um, I kind of want to do a Nolan rewatch though because I want to see if it. I don't know if it's his best movie. Um, but I don't think it would be out of the conversation for now. I think the other question is it rewatchable, because that's something I do use to evaluate what I would consider my favorite movie, or I think it's probably his best made movie. Um, but I think I think it would. I think it's going to be interesting to see how it unfolds. And you know what? I know you've probably done this, but I'll do this as well. Do you want to give your rating for Oppenheimer? I mean, we might as well, because this is turned into an Oppenheimer kind of review anyway. So
I'm gonna give Oppenheimer a solid like 9.5 out of 10. Pretty high.
that's very high praise.
Very high.
I'd give it about an 8.5,
It's pretty good.
maybe a 9. Like, I mean, I didn't actually think I was going to be giving it a rating, so I didn't think about the rating. But there's some things which are kind of questionable there. But like I think there were points which I was like, okay, maybe I would have done this differently. I do think there are things where, although it wasn't boring, I kind of felt like it wasn't necessary to show. Like, things can be interesting and can be like, oh my god, this is not boring. However, it doesn't interest. Also, I don't love movies, and I know this is something Nolan will probably do forever and ever and ever. But I do like sometimes a little bit more of a standard narrative structure, and what I mean by that is sometimes when a movie jumps too much around in time, it kind of especially when you're watching a movie late at night, at least when I'm watching a movie late at night, kind of messes with my head a little bit, and I forget where things are in timelines because it's like 11 o'clock and I'm not, at that point, my brain is not interested in like doing all that stuff. I think Tenet probably did this worse than anything else Nolan's done, except for Inception. I guess would probably Inception obviously did that too, but like I think Tenet did it worse than Inception did. But I think just when you jump around on a timeline too much, obviously this did in a different way, but I think that kind of messes with my brain a little bit because you also then have to remember, what did this character know at this time, right? Like it's all this other stuff. I also wish they spent more time kind of in the whatever they would consider the present of that movie, because I thought that was a very interesting thing which they didn't explore that much. And they also got a little distracted from Oppenheimer himself when they went off to like, the side character stuff, but which I know contradicts my previous point, but anyways, I think but I do think it was a great movie. So I'm, again, I'd give it 8.5, probably 9-ish
To
in that area.
your point about like jokes and such and the runtime, first I'll make a point about the jokes. It's because like the reason why there wasn't like that many, and I think that's something you said, or what did you say about jokes? I don't want to misquote you.
Well, I just said that. Well, there weren't many jokes which made sense with the tone of the movie, but they didn't just say let's shove in a joke here because why not, right? Like Endgame did, for example.
Well, there wasn't. Well, even if there were jokes in it, there wasn't a reason to, because like they were in a race against Germany for an atomic bomb. And second, I think that the reason why this movie is 3 hours is because like obviously the first half of the film I would say is the actual building of the atom bomb, then it's the Trinity test, the bomb goes off, and then the second half is the whole McCarthyism. And obviously a lot, like it took them so many years to build that bomb and so many little details, and then the whole McCarthyism part, that was a long kind of process into trying to target Oppenheimer and try and get his security clearance. I think that's why they did it long, because they wanted to show the audience like how bad this McCarthyism was and how long it really took for them to build this bomb in perspective, obviously.
No, I agree with you. I don't like. I think what I said about the runtime at least was, I didn't going into it. I was like, they're like when you make a movie 3 hours long,
Mhm.
generally speaking, there's something that's boring and could be cut out, right? Like my personal opinion is if movies are meant to be cut. And what I mean by that is you're meant to have a movie and you're meant to cut it down, right?
Yeah.
Movies being 2 hours at 30 minutes or 2 hours, 45 minutes, like kind of at that top level, means you did your job not only as a director, but also as an editor and all these other people. You did it properly, right? Because movies are meant to be cut. And if you just kind of, shoot and then release a movie, obviously that's not exactly how it's done anyways, but you know what I mean? Like that's ridiculous. And I think that's wrong. And I think that's the medium of cinema of film is not that of TV. I think TV is a little bit more of and I think that's why also, we can get into a whole Marvel TV thing, but like I think why Marvel's doing TV wrong, because good TV, it doesn't cut like that, right? Movies are meant to be shoved a lot of amazing story in a very short runtime. TV is supposed to be a lot more expansive and a lot more free flowing and a lot more like you're gonna have to like if you watch TV shows, even the best TV shows, there's always points in the season and in the show where it kind of feels a little draggy, a little bit right? But the point of a TV show is that experience, right? The
Mhm.
year-long experience, right?
Mhm.
That some people taking advantage of that. Obviously, you have that the show with it shows where they take advantage of that kind of long form stuff, right?
Mhm.
I think movies are meant to be short, and I think when you have a movie that's 3 hours long, it feels. And you look at Avatar, it's probably being the worst offender of this in the sense of like they're talking about like 6 hour movies, which obviously will never happen. But when you're talking about 6 hour movies, it makes it feel like you're being a little bit lazy because if you want to do something 6 hours long, we get a TV show, right? Because
Mhm.
movies are supposed to be tight. And I think when you made, I didn't, and I was like, okay, is this going to be a movie where they have a lot of stuff where it's like you didn't need this in the movie? But that's not true. That's not what happened at all, which is why I was glad, right? Because they didn't have that where they said, "Oh my God, we have all this stuff that doesn't need to be there." And we've done audio commentary for Endgame. We both witnessed Hulk making taco jokes in Endgame for no apparent reason, and we're like, did that need to be in there? Would that have been in there, if they didn't have the desire to make it a 3 hour movie, right? Like, I don't think it would have been. If I were directing that, I would not have put that in there because it made no sense with the tone, right?
Mhm.
But when everyone half the universe dies and all this other stuff, and Hulk's making taco jokes, like,
Yeah.
okay, I guess, right? But like, that's my point. Is more like you have these in this movie, but it's not draggy. And historical dramas always, when they're the longer they are, the draggier they are, almost like without question. Right? 1917 was another one, draggy as hell. Like you know, um, so I think that's the thing. They didn't do any of that, which is great.
It
That's
was
that's my point.
everything that was in the film was there and it was good. It was like there for a purpose.
Yeah. No, I agree. And that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like going into it, I didn't think that was going to be the case because typically,
Yeah.
again, with historical dramas, it's so easy when when you're essentially retelling history, it's really, really easy to get sidetracked because history, a lot of things happen at once, right?
Yeah.
Like people like it kind of sounds dumb to say, but like there's a history that has a lot going on at once, especially during like a world war. And it's very easy when you're trying to tell a story to get distracted by all of the other parts of the story. And you could make a 7 hour World War II movie, and you still wouldn't do justice to everything that went on, right?
Mhm.
So it's very hard, especially when talking about like the God, there's a lot of people on the planet Earth at one point in time, right?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things going on, right? Like, you know what I mean? I know it sounds dumb to say, but it's true. Like, it's hard to make a movie where you can kind of say confidently, this all needs to be there without getting sidetracked. When you're dealing with World War II, they did an excellent job, I think, of not talking about the Nazis pretty much at all.
Yeah.
Like, it was probably the only World War II movie where Nazis were basically not talked about at all. Like there were mentions of them, but there was almost nothing. Which again, that's incredible. Like I don't know if you like, Wonder Woman, which is a World War One movie, had to talk about Nazis, and they didn't
Mhm.
even exist at that point.
Yeah.
Based on like what Wonder Woman was trying to do, like that, it's incredible to be able to basically have. I don't know if they showed a single Nazi in the entire movie.
Probably not.
Like that's again, I don't like. Maybe I feel like everyone's just rolling their eyes, but I'm like that's like when you think about how hard it is for people to not use Nazis as like the main focus of every World War II thing in existence. that's hard to do. Like,
Mhm.
everyone wants to talk about the Nazis all the time. Everything. World War. Well, again, Wonder Woman is about World War One. They talked about the Nazis because
Mhm.
they just felt like the Nazis, right? They had to do something about them. So I don't know. I think that's my quote on saying the word Nazi for the podcast. But yeah, I think that was something which was like that kind of thing is incredible. However, that I don't think it was one of the most important or best movies of the century. So I think when you're giving him credit like that, you're kind of overrating him to some extent, because you can be really really good, but when you tell someone, oh yeah, the greatest, one of the greatest ever, and this is one of the greatest movies ever, and all this other stuff, where this is by far the best superhero movie ever, like none of those things are true, and I think we just have to keep everything in perspective. Is probably my only argument there.
Mhm.
Um, I don't know if you have anything else to say on that.
Not a lot, but we covered. I think we covered a lot.
So now, do you want my Barbie review?
Yes, I'd love to hear this actually.
Okay, so we're gonna do this a little bit differently. I want you to tell me what you want me to talk about.
Talk about Barbie herself.
Margot Robbie is not a great actress. Uh, I don't know if that's a hot take. It might be, but she is not a great actress. There's my hot take for the day. However, and I think right, well, that'd be another question, but I think she was, but I also think she did a really good job in this role. Like I think this was kind of a role made for her in a lot of senses. Um, again, she's an actress who I think forever will be typecast and will be kind of put in roles which work. And I think this is probably the kind of role she'll do. Obviously, she'll do something like Harley Quinn, she'll do something like Barbie, and that's a very profitable way to live because trust me, you're going to be making money forever and ever and ever. But I think she's not a great actress. I don't think there's anything like I didn't walk away saying, oh my god, that Barbie lady, wow, that was the one of the best acting performances I've seen in my entire life. Like I don't think that's true. Okay, what else?
Ken.
Ryan Gosling's performance was not that good. Ryan Gosling's performance, I don't think this is his best performance ever. I don't think this is even close. I think his La La Land performance was better. I don't think we're even like. I think we just need to like. I think he was like. I went into it. Everyone was telling me all these things about him, like how like it was his best performance ever, and he like really just destroyed norms. And I'm like, I come out of the movie. I'm like,
Dude,
okay.
some people that I know that watch Barbie, for some reason, I don't know, they're
I
grown ass
watched it.
men. They're grown ass men. Um,
I watch all movies though.
do you think some of them, not them, but some of they went with their girlfriends, right? And they wanted to see it. Some of them said that Ryan Gosling deserves to be nominated for Best Supporting Actor. Do you think that's legit?
Oh, there's a lot of people saying that. I'll tell you again, in my professional opinion, which you can take or leave as you wish, I don't think this is even close to an Oscar performance by him.
Shots fired.
Look, I'll be honest with you. Okay, I'll tell you right now. Can I tell you something? I'll tell you something.
Yeah.
Drive, La La Land, The Notebook, all honestly.
No, that's valid. That's valid. That's already valid.
No, I agree that's valid. Do I want to do this? He was a better Neil Armstrong than he was a Ken.
I respect that. I respect that.
Like again, I think this is honestly. Like, I think this was he was just fine. Like he just did a good job. Like he didn't do a bad job. But honestly, if again, I think oh, I'm gonna say something offensive here. Probably I don't know.
Say it. No one cares. No one cares. Say it. If you get canceled, you get canceled.
He felt a lot like Olaf in Frozen 2. Or not, sorry, not Olaf, sorry, Kristoff.
Shots fired.
He felt a lot like Kristoff in Frozen 2. Honestly, I would argue the Kristoff performance in Frozen 2 actually did what Ken was trying to do, but did it better. And again, even the song, I'm Just Ken or whatever the hell it's called, I think the very underrated song by Christoph about how he's just Christoph pretty much is probably a better song as well. So I would actually say I think he's highly overrated. Honestly, I think he was probably the worst Ken of all the
Okay.
Kens. What
Huh.
did she ask me another one?
The Barbie Land and like how the dynamics of that place and just anything about Barbie Land.
Okay. Again, something I say here is gonna get me canceled or
Who
something.
cares?
I
Who
don't
cares?
care.
If you get canceled, it's an achievement. It's a trophy. Wear that proudly.
But I will say this. I don't, and again, I think everyone doesn't understand the movie, and it's kind of weird because I don't think like I personally did not feel my masculinity was attacked by watching that movie. I'll be honest with you. I felt, very confident in my masculinity watching that movie. I think it was interesting because my sister walked out of that movie and said they were so mean to all of the male characters in Barbie Land. And again, not me, my sister. So, there's a little bit of, whatever feels that like I think that was an interesting comment. I don't agree with that. I think the point really was like almost absurd. Like it was meant to be absurdity. And what I mean by that is they're like, look at what the Barbie like are doing to the Kens, right? Look how like you agree that's absurd, right? Okay, so do you not agree that if, and again, I think the movie actually does a good job saying this is not the exact same dynamic, right? Like the way Ken learns about the patriarchy and all this other stuff is very much through reading a library book, not by like, you know what I mean? Like there's a lot of things which say, no, 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 this is not exactly how the world is. But they're basically like, why? Like, don't you agree this is absurd? Okay, so it's absurd for both sides, right? Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's almost like a, hey, it's absurd. This looks absurd, right?
Mm-hmm.
So no matter who does this, like, if you want to say whichever gender does this or whatever, like whatever the politically correct way to say that is, um, like it's crazy either way. And I think that's a very good point. Like I don't think there's like they didn't villainize men at all. They didn't make men helpless or any of that. Like there were some assholes in like male assholes in the movie. There were also some female assholes in the movie. Like, you know what I mean? Like I think it was a very fair interpretation. Like I think it was meant to be a parody on life, right? Like the whole point of Barbie Land is a parody on real life. And I think there's no problem with that. Like I don't know. Unless I'm just completely misreading the movie, but I don't know. I didn't feel insecure. I thought it was a very interesting way to parody something, just like how we see, things get parodied all the like different, kind of absurdist events being parodied all the time. Ask me another one.
I think that they also traveled. They went to the real world. What was that like?
Um, I love the fish out of water stuff, so that was awesome. I did like I loved there's this, and again, I guess at this point we're spoiling it, but who cares? We've spoiled two movies.
Spoiler review.
I mean, to be fair, I'll just put some spoiler thing at the beginning of this and call it a day. But the like at the beginning of this podcast because we spoiled two movies now. But I think when they went to the real world is actually really interesting because again, they weren't like because I heard all this stuff of the movie, especially for people who are like, a little bit weird in the sense of like they felt like their masculinity was threatened by this movie, right? So I went in expecting like the real world basically to be this completely weird thing. But like, yeah, there were like undertones of stuff, but like it wasn't like, oh my god, look at how the men are treating the women. Like to some extent, yeah, it's especially initially, but not the entire movie. Like I just felt like it was funny. Like it was a comedy, right? And that I look at this as a comedy, and so I think when you make a joke, no matter who you're insulting, it's still funny. Like there are things like the whole point, like one of the things they said was like, oh look, some man's riding a horse, therefore men ride horses, right? Like, like that kind of absurdity, which I don't know. I didn't have a problem with that.
What about the whole idea that like the Barbies are controlled by how people in real life play with them? And then it turns out that the person who plays with Margot Robbie's Barbie was like a dickhead.
No, it was not. No, the person playing Margot Robbie with Barbie was an adult. That was the reveal at the end, or like
Oh, okay, okay.
it was her mother. It was the girl's mother, not the girl herself. But I don't know. I just, again, like, I think that was all very, like, it was done in a really interesting way. Because again, this is not like, I don't look at this like a Barbie movie. I look at this like a very good comedy, right? Like,
That's interesting.
it's I don't I think people took the wrong things. Like, I think people wanted this to be a social commentary so badly. Like, both, like, everybody, like, on whatever side. And I think, and maybe Greta Gerwig didn't have that, like, had a social commentary in mind when she wrote it. I think there are moments of, like, where it's clear social commentary, but that's every movie ever. Like, go find a movie where there are not moments of social commentary. Oppenheimer had moments of social commentary in it. Like, and telling a director, oh yeah, don't give any social commentary on anything whatsoever. Like, that's ridiculous. There was a ton of communist social commentaries on that kind of the ideological scale, right? In terms of that, which, again, it's historical drama, whatever, but is like that kind of comedy type. Like, it was, I looked at it as a comedy with social commentary, which, again, go find me a comedy or any movie without social commentary, you can't find it. But, like, I think there were moments where it's like, oh, that's nice, but it's also, like, really just a fun movie to watch, right? Like, I don't remember, I had a, like, when I was after the movie, I think there's a movie that popped in my head, I should have written it down, where it's like, this feels like a version of that, but it wasn't like, it's not like, again, I think people are looking at this like this amazing movie. I didn't see amazing. I saw fun kids movie,
Yeah.
right? And that's not a, by the way, I don't know why, but everyone thinks fun kids movies like the biggest, like, insult to a movie, but it's not, right? Like, I don't, like, do I see that much of a difference between that and Mamma Mia? Not really. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I would put those in the same tier of movie, which, again, I know people see as like, an insult to their humanity, but I don't, like, I think people think too much about something. Like, sometimes they think too much about things. And I think this is one of the cases where it's like, this is not, like, I didn't watch this and say Oscar worthy anywhere. I didn't see the Oscar worthy. Maybe, actually, no, I disagree. I'm going to disagree with myself here. Greta Gerwig is Oscar worthy as a director. Everything else about this movie, I didn't see, like, any of the top tier technical awards are another thing, but, like, any of the top tier Oscars, right? Like, I think Oppenheimer was a better movie in terms of the fundamentals of making a movie than Barbie.
100%.
I think Barbie was a fun movie. I enjoyed watching it, right? Like, none of these are untrue statements. But I don't know. I just feel like it was a good movie. I am glad I watched it. I did not feel insecure about my masculinity watching it. I think there were some great moments. I think there were some cringe moments. I think there were some bad moments, like every movie in existence.
What were the cringe moments?
There were a few things. Like, I think Michael Cera's character was a little bit, like,
Really?
Alan was a little bit cringy. Yeah.
Out of all people?
I don't like him as an actor anyway, so it kind of,
Wow. That's tough.
but, like, again, I was like, his character was a little bit, like, the John Cena thing, by the way, was super cringy too.
What about Will Ferrell?
I thought Will Ferrell actually, honestly, okay, my God, am I going to say like 7 different hot takes today? I think Will Ferrell probably was more of the character that everyone thought that Ryan Gosling was. Like, he was in the movie a lot less, but I think he actually got, like, I think there was a little bit of they did an interesting thing there, right? Because what they ended up doing, I don't know how much of this was kind of forced on Greta Gerwig to actually make the movie, but they really made Will Ferrell, who, by the way, was the CEO of Mattel, like, in the movie, seem like a really great guy. Like, they did some moments of, like, him being an ass, but, like, at the end of the day, they really left it ambiguous as to what his motivations were, and they made him seem like he was really just trying to help the world. And I don't know, I think there was some, and I think that was a little bit cringy too, honestly, if I'm, like, in that sense. Like, if you're good, like, if you want to go full social commentary, take the head off of the Mattel, like, corporation, because we could go back in time, but I can tell you, they did some very bad stuff with the intent behind the dolls. By the way, throw out a little plug here. go watch the Black Barbie documentary, which I reviewed from Hot Docs last year, or this year, I guess, a few months ago. That documentary, I think, was probably better than the Barbie movie, but because it actually was, like, obviously it's real. But I think it did a lot. Like, if you want a real social commentary on, race and dolls and stuff, go watch that, because that was something where they really take the head off the Mattel, like, kind of corporation for what they've done. But yeah, I think this. I don't think this was, like, I didn't feel social. Like, I didn't, like, we've talked about this. There's movies that we feel like lecture us, right? When we watch them, we're like, I don't really need this, right? I didn't feel lectured at by this movie, right?
Yeah.
I just felt like it was a funny movie, and there were some, like, absurdist moments, and it was like, cool. That's how good movies are made, right? I don't know. Anyways, next one. Fire here.
Ooh, I don't know. Because I don't know much about the Barbie movie and I haven't seen it.
Okay,
So
I'll give you a question that you should ask me.
Okay.
Ask me if I think there should be a sequel.
Do you think there should be a sequel?
No. I also don't think there should be a spin-off universe based on this movie. I think the spin-off universe probably is the stupidest thing ever. I think the sequel is less stupid, but still extremely stupid. I don't think they should make a Ken spinoff. I don't think they should make an Alan spinoff. I don't think they should make an individual Barbie character spinoff. This movie is truly a one-time thing. I'll be honest with you. I think if they made a sequel, it would mean the studio didn't understand why people love the movie so much.
Yeah.
Like, not everything needs a sequel. Do you think Oppenheimer should have a sequel?
Well, no, I don't think historical dramas need a sequel.
Right. Okay, so in the same vein, I'm going to say you don't need a sequel to this. Do you think Oppenheimer needs a spin-off, a cinematic universe?
It's a historical movie.
Albert Einstein movie based on on Oppenheimer.
Yeah, Einstein's theory of relativity.
Yeah, because that's something people are going to flock to watch, right?
Yes.
But him getting a hit on the head, no.
Isaac Newton.
I'm saying Isaac Newton spinoff. Yeah, go do all the scientists, right?
Bro, Sigmund Freud. To everybody. Scientists first.
Scientists, crackpots who tell stories about people's brains, all the stuff. Yeah,
the scientist verse.
But that's my point. Is like, we don't, obviously that's stupid, and we don't want that. Just like how, this Barbie movie doesn't need a sequel. It was a good movie. I think Ryan Gosling is extremely over. If we were talking about overrated, I think Ryan Gosling has become extremely overrated. This is not even close. Like, people, I saw a tweet. I wish I saved it. This is the best performance of anyone of the entire year. And I'm like, no, it isn't. Like, Ryan Gosling did not have the best performance of the year. Okay, let's chill out a little bit. Like, he didn't suck, but if that's the standard, then okay, I guess he met the standard. But like, I think if you make a sequel, you're gonna be so disappointed, because the beauty of this movie was the fact that it was like it was a moment in time, right? It'll be a movie. I think it'll be a movie that we go back to in 100 years and say that was a moment of amazingness, right? I think we'll forget about like, if you try to do your Barney sequel and Hot Wheels and all this other bullshit, like, that's gonna be forgotten.
Yeah.
And it's going to fail, and it's going to suck. And I think this was a perfect movie. It was not a great movie. It was a fun movie, right? Like, it was like a level above kind of the lowbrow comedies, right? Like, it was like a highbrow comedy, and that's it. Actually, you know what? I'll put in a tier. I'll give you a comp here. The Adam Sandler movie with Anthony Edwards.
Hustle,
right? Yeah. I would that's the level I'd put it on. I thought Hustle was probably one of the most uncut gems excluded, one of the best Adam Sandler movies. I don't know if you disagree with that, but
no,
I would probably say
it's up there. It's 100% up there.
I think, actually even better. I think Click. I think that's the one, right? Adam Sandler. I think that's kind of like, that, by the way, that movie has social commentary. Go watch Click. You tell me there's no social commentary in there. Like, you know what I mean? There's social commentary in every movie. I think,
dude, Grown-Ups.
Yeah. I don't even remember Grown-Ups enough to.
Grown-Ups and Grown-Ups 2. Those are great.
Well, I'm saying is there. I don't know if there's social comment. I don't remember what
No,
social.
I'm not saying there is. It's just a fun. It's just a fun comedy movie. But you know,
Like I think it's a little bit higher brow than Grown Ups though. Like I think it's a little bit above that in terms of like quality. I don't think I don't know. Again, maybe I'm misremembering Grown Up, but I don't know if I would really say it was like the quality thing. But like I'm trying to like there was a perfect comp I had, which I can't remember anymore. But it like you know what I mean though, right? Like it's like that higher brow comedy where it's like there's good qualities to this. Also, I'm kind of tired of like I'll be honest with you, the Billie Eilish song sucks. I'm
yeah,
sorry, I don't like. I've
damn.
heard that thing too many times. I think that Dua Lipa song is mid. I like I don't know. I just like honestly again, if we want to rank soundtracks or I think if you took Barbie, you took Spider-Verse and you took what was the other movie that had a soundtrack this year which was really good?
Oppenheimer.
No, not the score, not a soundtrack. No one sang in Oppenheimer as far as I'm aware. Um um God damn, what was that movie that came out this year which had people singing songs in it?
Uh oh Jesus. Was it a musical?
No.
Hold on, let's look it up. Was it like a big movie this year?
I don't know. I thought there was one more that was like
There has to be. Let's see.
let's see, we're going to find out. But like there's like I think honestly what's the other movie that's in conversations for best um sound soundtrack or best score or best not score, sorry, soundtrack. Um
The Little Mermaid, probably not.
was it the Little Mermaid I was thinking of? No, I don't think it was. Um whatever it was. Um that's going to bug me now. Okay, well whatever it was, I'm not going to you can keep looking but
Yeah, I'm gonna
I,
search this.
maybe my mind is just tripping right now,
Is it
but
Into the Spider Verse?
no, I said that one already as one of them.
Uh,
Um,
what did you say? A film that's like had a good soundtrack?
yeah, that like it had a song in the kind of I guess conversations that people were having about best soundtrack or best song in a movie, right?
Let's see.
I'm gonna I'm gonna look at Twitter because Twitter will jog my memory better than anything else. Um,
Napoleon.
I don't even know why I don't remember this. Anyways, whatever it was, and I'm sure it'll come to me as soon as we finish recording this podcast, anyways. But I think that, but I think that, but I think if we just talk about sort of Spider Verse, because I can remember that one off the top of my head as something absolutely that is, something that people are talking about. I think this Spider Verse clears this by a mile. I think it's extremely overrated. I think I think the soundtrack is extremely overrated, overplayed too, very overplayed. But yeah, I think whatever the song is, which I won't be able to find right now, I would say this is not the best one. Um, I think it's extremely overplayed. I dislike it quite a bit. Like I think it just, it's just so basic. That sounds weird, but it's true. Like you know what I mean? It's just very much like it just sounds so like it's nothing unique. There's nothing unique about it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's something which kind of is disappointing because yeah, you want it to be unique and you want it to be kind of this different sound and I don't know. Also, I know this is kind of like a weird thing to talk about at this point, but Billie Eilish in this as the Super Bowl performer is not it. Please don't do that.
Yeah, that's not exactly the best idea.
Like again, here I'm going to say something which I'll probably get hate for or I've cultivated enough of like the right kind of audience where I won't get any hate for this. Who knows? But I like the Super Bowl performances need to be people who have like it, like the kind of
Rihanna.
performance, like she's performance factor. Like that's the thing. Like
Yeah.
we like you, or we'll go back even further. Like Michael Jackson or Prince, right? Like we'll look at Michael Jackson. Obviously, he's a performer, right?
Mm-hmm.
You look at Prince, he's a performer, right? You look at Beyonce, she's a performer, right? What's the worst Super Bowl halftime show? Probably, at least in the running forever, Justin Timberlake.
Yeah.
Why? Because he's boring as hell and nobody likes watching him, do anything. Now, on the other hand, do I think who was the other person in the running? Miley Cyrus, I think, was the other person in the running. That would be awesome. I tell you, Miley Cyrus has that performance aspect, right? Like that matters in when you're talking about the Super Bowl. I know we're going to watch it to watch the Kansas City Chiefs win another Super Bowl. However, there's a lot of people who watch it for the performance, and I think you can't Bill Eilish a little bit too kind of sad in a lot of her songs. There's not a lot of movement. You know what I mean? Like I think. Does you know how I think about it? If Patrick Mahomes was getting ready for the second half of a dominant Super Bowl, what would pump him up? Do I think a Billie Eilish song is going to pump him up? No, not really. I think you're going to need I think a Miley Cyrus song that would pump him up. He'd get ready to go in and beat the wheels off of whoever he's playing. I don't know.
Well,
The
I mean,
Eagles,
the weekend had some pretty good music, and it still wasn't enough for him to beat Tom Brady in 2021.
But I'm just saying, like, it'd be worse. But he had no offensive line. So, anyways, I'm just saying it would be worse if he, it's like, when I'm like, when we're watching the Super Bowl in February, right?
Yeah.
Like, when Patrick Mahomes is like, 4 passing touchdowns in the first half, or maybe 6, let's say 6 passing touchdowns in the first half and 3 rushing touchdowns in the first half. Like, I'm going to be jumping up and down. I don't need, Billie Eilish kind of bringing down the tone. I need to be losing my mind, right? And I think that Billie Eilish is probably the wrong person to help me continue to do that, right?
Yeah. What was a really underrated Super Bowl performance? The one between like 2 years ago when the Bengals and the Rams played. I think that was really like that energetic type. That was also really underrated.
That might be one of my I think that's up there. I mean,
I think it was just a bunch of like
when you have Eminem show up, you're done. That's it.
Yeah.
That's a wrap on
It was like a bunch of like West Coast rappers, but it was really good. It's very
Mary J.
underrated.
Blige and I think was there, and I
Mhm.
think
Dr.
Eminem,
Dre,
Dr. Dre,
Eminem.
yeah,
It was a very good show.
that was
It's also
amazing.
it's also one of those shows, like you said, it gets you energized and shit because of the
Well,
music
that's the thing.
that they played.
Like Justin Timberlake, I think was the worst choice for Super Bowl ever, mainly because his music, although it's very pop, is like very basic. I think Miley Cyrus actually is the perfect choice. Honestly, I would, if I were them, and based on the 4 options, I think Usher, Jason Derulo, and Billie Eilish and Miley Cyrus are the 4 that they mentioned. Shout out to me for probably getting all those names right. I think Usher would be an awesome one. I think Miley Cyrus probably the pick. If Miley Cyrus isn't the pick, I don't know. But like that's the same argument with Taylor Swift. It's like I don't know if she has the performance aspect to do a Super Bowl. Concert notwithstanding, I don't know if she like. At the end of the day, the ultimate Super Bowl forever will be the fact that Prince made it rain during Purple Rain. Like that's it. That's like peak Super Bowl performances right there. And Michael Jackson's obviously like legendary, all-time great performance, right? Like those 2 really just are above everything else, and nothing will ever come close to those. And we should just accept that now. However, I think they've, choosing someone like Billie Eilish probably it's quite literally, apart from like it's one of the worst ideas ever. Probably in terms of Super Bowl performance, like it definitely tops just like listen to Billie Eilish's songs. Do any of those scream Super Bowl biggest TV event of the year? Like let's get this hype going kind of thing.
No.
Like imagine you're at like again like a basketball game, you hear a Billie Eilish song. Are you like getting ready to fight for your team? Or are you like going crying, curling in a ball, crying about how sad your life is? Like, let's be honest.
I'm gonna cry. I'm gonna cry.
Right. Well, that's the thing, right? Like, I don't know. I think that, you know, as we kind of talk about music, because apparently now we can have educated conversations. I can have educated conversations about music. Who knew? But I think when it comes to tone of the Super Bowl, I don't know if Billie Eilish is the right one. Miley Cyrus, on the other hand, would absolutely be the right one, the right tone, in every way, because her music is quite literally, you know, especially now.
Yeah.
Oh,
I'll
let me
give
say
you,
something.
I'll give you another example. And this is not football. This is just soccer. During one of the biggest soccer games of the year, the European Championship, Camilla Cabello came out to sing at halftime, and not a lot of people enjoyed it because, like, for one, that crowd was already energetic as a motherfucker, and like they said, like it didn't really suit the mood of that game. So yeah, you have to pick and choose wisely who is going to perform because Camila Cabello didn't do anything to further elevate that 2022 Champions League final.
But and I think you know that doesn't. I think when you're talking about the Super Bowl, right? I think you're talking about performances in general,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like being a bad, like not making sense in that environment does not mean you're bad at making music, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or you're a bad singer, or even a bad performer, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
again, I think probably the only person who I get pushback for saying is like Taylor Swift. I don't know if that makes sense. However, I understand how it could make sense.
Hey, hey,
Um,
hey! Don't disrespect my girl Taylor like that.
no, but my point is more about the performance. Like I don't current tour notwithstanding, I don't know if people are like, I absolutely need to see Taylor Swift before I die in concert because that is like a life changing experience. I don't think that's the case.
Me.
No, but I'm no, but see, this is the thing. Like, I don't like. Are you going and expecting Taylor Swift to like be like the performance itself to be amazing, or is it? Like, I feel like more than anything, it's for the music and also the
Yeah,
fact.
it's for the music, but also part of me is wishing like for a great like aesthetic of the performance.
You know what it's like? I'll give you this is probably the dumbest example I've ever given for anything, but I'm gonna do it anyways because it'll probably piss you off a little bit. So
Oh
it
boy.
works for me.
Oh boy.
Taylor Swift is like LeBron, and Prince
He is.
and Michael Jackson are like Kobe and MJ. Michael Jordan, obviously, not Michael. Anyways, you know, Michael Jackson is Michael Jordan, and Prince is Kobe. Right? We're like LeBron is great and all, but like if
He's
you
the
want to look
GOAT.
at if you're gonna watch highlights, I'm gonna go to Kobe and MJ first, and then I'll go to
What?
LeBron.
I'd go to
I'll be
LeBron
I'll be
highlights.
I'll be honest with you. You know, if I'm watching highlights, I'm gonna choose. You know, I'll choose Kobe highlights. You know,
What?
watch those 20 minutes of nice Kobe highlights.
Nah.
LeBron has good moments. I would watch his block, I guess, and then maybe
LeBron's got
his.
great moments.
I like especially now, but like LeBron's longevity and skill is obviously not that. However, I think when you're watching on the, you know, you look at who pops off the screen, you know, I think Magic's probably a more electrifying player than LeBron.
What?
Not a better player. Not a better. I'd say a more
Magic is
exciting
more
player.
electrifying than LeBron?
Yeah,
Wow. How?
like I think he's a more like if you watched highlights of Magic and then you watch highlights of LeBron, I think you're more impressed with the highlights of Magic. Again, not meaning better because
Yeah,
there's a
I
lot of
know, I
players
know. I know.
great highlights. Like I'm not making that argument. I'm not that stupid right now. Um that's an argument offline when I can, you
What?
know, say things. But I personally believe you know, like if I'm watching player highlights, again, let's exclude Raptors because obviously I choose Siakam over everybody else in terms of highlights, but that's because I'm
How
biased.
is Siakam
That
energetic? The
no,
dude's a
but that's because I'm
Beyblade.
biased. That's because I'm biased though, right?
Dude's a
But like
Beyblade.
But like my point is this though. Let's ignore the Raptor stuff. But like my point is this: like when you look at like Tim Duncan, I'm never gonna go to Tim Duncan for highlights ever.
Dude.
I don't know if I've ever actively looked up Tim Duncan highlights in my life, which is not a shot at Tim Duncan because Tim Duncan is one of the best players of all time, right? But at the same time, I'm not gonna go to Tim Duncan. Honestly, I'll probably go to Jason Tatum highlights before I go to Tim Duncan highlights.
Mhm.
And again, that's not because Jason Tatum's better than Tim Duncan, but it's just because one of those people is more electrifying. Like Taylor Swift has a lot of great music, which you can listen to and you can love, right? She has some good stuff early on, that she changed her sound a little and it's better, right? But it's not electrifying in the same way. Like LeBron, especially like now, right? LeBron not electrifying. I don't
Yes,
know.
he is.
No, he isn't. He's like this old man on the court who's just better than everybody. It's like in pickup basketball, like the guy better than you. Like just the
Dude,
guy's like really, really good.
when he plays, he's faster than everyone and more athletic than everyone on the court. Dude, even when he plays against John Morant, I think he's faster and more athletic than John Morant.
But like he has the vibes of an old dude, which is not a bad thing, by the way. Like old vibes are not a bad thing to have. But the point is like AD has old vibes mainly because he like limps around the court the entire time, right? Like, but I think like we're talking about electrifying. Like I think Zion, Ja are electrifying basketball players, and yet RJ Barrett might be the best player of that draft class because he's the only one who
Darius Garland.
No comment at this time.
Not Darius Garland. Wow, that's crazy.
But like my point is the same. Sure, Darius Garland or DeAndre Hunter, whoever else was in that class. But I think that was Hunter's class, right?
Yeah,
because he's your guy.
Yeah, he was at fourth pick, and then Garland was fifth.
What school did DeAndre Hunter go to?
Virginia.
Oh, wait, I thought he went to Alabama. I don't know. All your guys are.
He won the national championship with Virginia that year.
So then, why do you like him? Oh, the Hawks, right? I forgot he plays for the Hawks. Once the Hawks get Siakam, you're gonna have to like Siakam. That's gonna be great. As a great day.
I mean, I don't want to give up so much depth for Siakam though, so I don't know.
Well, we're not giving Siakam. Let's get a Kongwu, we get DeAndre Hunter, and we get AJ Griffin, and we get all your picks forever and ever.
That's the thing. That's our depth, and we kind of need that.
To be fair, right now Rudy Gay is your power forward, so
Yeah, we could use someone better.
Do you remember? Okay, this is like probably to some extent a violation, but whatever. Do you remember when you were all like arguing about how great John Collins is and how he's the future of the Hawks, and then they traded him for Rudy Gay?
Yeah, I know. He kind of fell off. I thought, but then he lost his jump shot, especially from 3 and mid range, and I was just like, no, get this.
Like I think you came over the play-in game and you were arguing with us about how great John Collins was. Like it was literally the play-in game, maybe. And you were like, this man is going to be he's a dominant two-way player. John Morant's best second option, and now look at him.
I mean, he was. I think I said he was because he kind of lost that ability to block shots and make threes.
I don't know if he ever had that ability, but we can agree.
He did. He was his like first 4 years in the league. He was a solid like 36%, 35% 3-point shooter.
So we're agreeing that Pascal Siakam would be better than John Collins was.
Yeah, that's a no brainer. But I'm just saying.
Really, because I don't know if I told you that last year, you probably would argue.
That's a no brainer.
You do you think he'd be the instantly Trae Young's second best player?
What do you mean, Siakam?
If he joined the Hawks, would he be the second best player on the team? And you know exactly who I'm saying he would be better than.
Murray.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I think Murray's a better defender and passer.
I would actually argue the passing one, but that's another day.
No, Murray averaged like 9 assists or 10 assists last season, so I don't know.
Zach averaged like 7 as a power forward. Like I don't, especially with Trae Young in that game. That would be dangerous. That's all I want Trae Young on the route. Hey, do you want OG and then we'll take Trae Young? I think that's fair.
Yeah, maybe we need also shooting.
Oh, you'll give us Trae Young for OG?
No, absolutely not.
Oh,
if we're giving away Trae Young, we'll need a superstar in return.
OG's a superstar. Trust me.
No, he's not.
Trust me.
He's not.
Okay, you know what we'll do? Okay, we'll make it fair. We'll give you OG and Malachi Flynn.
Oh my God, Malachi Flynn.
You get a point guard to play with DeJounte, who's like a defensive-minded guy. Then you get OG, who's like a good wing player next to DeAndre Hunter, and you got a nice team there. OG could be the Mikal Bridges or Jeremy Grant of your team.
That's ridiculous.
I know. That's why I think we should do it.
No. I'm a bronzexual first. Like no matter what, I'm firstly a bronzexual. So LeBron, my sweet, beautiful, glorious King LeBron comes first.
So what about when he retires?
Well, I got several other players I like. Jaw.
Like, are you gonna do the thing like you did with Tom Brady, where you went from being the biggest Tom Brady fan to just jumping onto the Jalen Hurts bandwagon for some
I'm
reason?
not on the Jalen Hurts bandwagon. I was
Isn't
just
he your
cheering for the Eagles.
isn't he your guy? I thought he was your guy. I thought he
No,
was one of your many guys.
no.
Oh, you like all the bird teams.
I like the Saints.
The
I'm,
Saints, the Saints aren't a bird team, I guess.
no,
Their logo's a bird.
just the Saints. The Saints guy is Derek Carr now.
Yeah, I mean, you really are on the anti Mahomes bandwagon. Like your quarterback now is just whoever's not Mahomes. Wait, are you a Falcons guy too then?
I mean a little bit.
So like you're like a Desmond Ritter stan, right? That's
Desmond
what we
Ritter
got.
stand. I mean he's better than Mariota.
Have you not seen the quarterback documentary? That is untrue.
Desmond Ritter had a better season than Mariota.
Disagree. Mariota was on TV.
Mariota was having a bad season for a Heisman winner.
I think Desmond Ritter would be really, really good in the right.
Ritter's a good quarterback.
I think if you put, well, I don't think he's a good quarterback, but I think he's as good as Brock Purdy if you put him. Because
No,
I think that Hawks team actually, or that Falcons team, sorry, has a. See, all these Atlanta Birds, man. They. That's gonna. Oh my God, that's gonna take it out of context. Anyways, the. No, I think that like if you built this, like if you really put in like that McCarthy system into it, or you put in the not McCarthy system, sorry, that's a stupid system. If you put in the Shanahan system, that's what I meant, the one that works, then that was my way of taking a shot at the Cowboys, by the way. Then I think you could have a really good team because they have a lot of weapons, but I don't know. That's my opinion on Desmond Ritter as we end the 36-minute at 1 hour 36-minute podcast.
Yeah.
So on that note of randomness, thank you all for watching. If you got this far, that's good. Most people can't stand me for that long, so apart from the person sitting on the other side of the screen who can apparently, I don't know how he does it, man. That's one of the hardest things,
dude. I can stand my family. I can stand my fucking sister who talks endlessly. No, I mean I love her, but she endlessly speaks. I can stand anybody. I'm good.
Okay, well, that's why you can stand me, I guess. That's why it works, because you can stand my endless ramblings about random things and my endless Patrick Mahomes love. So
I have to put up with that now that Tom Brady is gone. Oh,
although there was a take, someone made the take that, and I don't even think you would disagree with this if you're being like honest, and maybe you'll just not be honest right now to spite me, but someone told me that Aaron Rodgers has a better career than Patrick Mahomes so far.
I don't know.
I'm sorry, but at the end of the day, if you have one ring and you had Devontae Adams and all these other people for so long and you couldn't get another ring, and you also have one of the worst track records in conference championship games, like I don't know if I could really, like, I think if you look at the scale, I don't think,
I think the
Rodgers,
Jets. I think the Jets are going to the Super Bowl this year.
no, because who are the incumbent Super Bowl? Who are the forever Super Bowl champions?
The Chiefs,
right?
Yeah,
So
I think the Jets can beat the Chiefs.
Sorry.
The Chiefs have no wide receiver, and the Jets have Sauce Gardner.
Excuse me, we have Rashid Rice. We have Richie James. We have Sky Moore. He caught
all these guys are getting locked up by Sauce Gardner.
Sauce Gardner's locking up 3 elite wide receivers.
He's a top 3 corner in the league.
Who's stopping Chris Jones as he rushes to
Quinnen Williams?
The great offensive line of
yes, he's good. Quinnen Williams is very good.
Who's stopping Charles Omenihu once he gets back from his suspension?
Someone.
But who's on the other side? The Jets have no offensive line. They have one player.
I mean, they have a very solid offensive line, and they got some solid receivers.
They have no offensive line.
And Rodgers. Dude, they're going to the Super Bowl.
when Aaron Rodgers is sacked like 45 times in the first two games, then
Nah,
you'll have to admit that they have a bad offensive line. And then when he gets sacked and you know, probably because when old people get sacked, they end up breaking things, and he breaks a bone in his hand, and then sucks. And then everyone's like, no, it's just because it's a broken finger, not because he's 40 years old and had a terrible offensive line.
nah. I
But
got the Jets going to the Super Bowl.
by the way, when Brady had a terrible offensive line, what happened? Oh yeah,
What
he lost to the Cowboys
what year? Oh yeah, this
last year.
year.
He
Yeah.
had the worst offensive line probably of his career, and he lost to the Cowboys in the first round after limping to the playoffs.
Well, they were all injured. The whole team was injured.
Right, but the difference was he had an injured offensive line. Oh, by the way, when Mahomes had his one bad offensive line season, what happened or one the game in the Super Bowl, what happened to him?
We'll get this previous Super Bowl.
No. The season he had a completely decimated offensive line, and he was basically told quite literally just run around for your life
The
while
2020
also
Super Bowl.
the one versus the Bucks, yes.
Yeah, he didn't score a touchdown.
Because he had to run and try to avoid people jumping on him and also throw the ball.
Isn't that
And
a testament to the Bucks defense?
no, it's a testament to the fact that his entire offensive line
I think it's more of a
literally
testament to the
was
Bucks
injured.
defense.
But okay.
Devin
Anyways,
White and Levante David were tanks.
the point is Aaron Rodgers has a bad offensive line this year, and it's going to hurt him in the season. And you'll
He'll
see
be all
when they
right.
lose week 1 to the Bills, they play. I
Ooh,
think.
that's a good game. That's a
I
good
don't even know.
fucking
Is
game.
that their week 1 game? I don't even know.
I think it is, but that's gonna be a good fucking game.
It's on 9/11.
That's still gonna be a good game.
No. They're gonna get decimated by the Bills,
Nah, I don't think so.
and I don't even like the Bills, and I think their Bills are gonna beat them up
Why don't you like the Bills?
because they're losers.
How?
I don't know.
I mean, my
Stephon
only
Diggs.
criticism is that Josh Allen hasn't really proven himself in the playoffs yet. That's my only criticism of them.
Well, you mean the one game he beat the Patriots is not enough of him proving himself?
I don't think so.
You don't think he could just beat the pathetic Patriots in
Has
one
he gone
game?
to the Super Bowl?
No, but he has lost at home to both Patrick Mahomes, or lost at home, sorry, to the Joe guy.
Burrow.
Yeah, and he also lost to Patrick Mahomes twice.
Yeah, so he hasn't proven himself.
But that's just because he's a bad quarterback.
No, he's a great quarterback, but he hasn't proven
Overrated
himself
quarterback.
in the playoffs.
Right. That's why he's no
Diggs.
Diggs hasn't proven himself. He just whines a lot. Anyways, Chiefs best team in the AFC. So that's all. Well, you're right. Maybe Jacksonville because they have an easy division. But Chiefs will end up winning, so it doesn't matter. Anyways, we will be talk about football again because I think this is like the second podcast in a row we end up talking about football at the end of it.
Yep.
So, we'll find some way to slip some football conversations into next week's podcast.
Yeah.
But until then, thank you all for watching. Go check us out on our website, which is in the description of the podcast feeds and also of the YouTube. Go watch us on YouTube if you're listening to us on podcast feeds. Go follow us on social media at comicboys_ or at CollegeMall03 or all the things are there. You can also subscribe to us on YouTube and follow us on podcast feeds if you're on either of those platforms. And you can leave us a 5-star rating or a 1-star rating and a review on the podcast feeds. And stay tuned. And the reason you want to subscribe and follow us and all this other stuff is because when we do have our announcements, which are going to be big time, ground shaking, earth shattering, like they're going to be like what Dunkirk was to audio.
Yeah.
That's what our announcement's going to be. So you're going to want to be there because I'll tell you this is probably the best stuff we've ever done. I think you would agree with that.
Yeah.
We're just moving up in the world. And we're going to be moving up even faster once we make some big foundational changes. Like Alon's getting fired. No, I'm not. I can't really fire him, but and I wouldn't either. Trust me. No, he's not getting fired. That was a joke.
Yeah, I know.
No, I know you know. I'm saying for everyone else.
Yeah.
There's only so many people who can actually stand listening to me talk. So the list of people is very limited. And you fall on that list, so you're safe for now. Until I can get a robot who could do your job. Then you're gonna have to go on strike like the actors.
Yeah.
Anyways, I don't know if you have anything else to say, but I think that's all I have to say.
I ain't got nothing to say.
Okay, perfect. So tune in. If you want more of Alon's thoughts where he's not interrupted by me like every time he tries to speak,
It's all good.
I mean, I wasn't apologizing. I'm just stating a fact. He did make an Oppenheimer review, which you can tell is his review because it's stylistically different from my messy thumbnails and it's very clean and to the point. So, maybe I'll just make all the thumbnails from now on. No, that's not going to happen. But it was a good idea for the 5 seconds it lasted. No, his review, which might be linked or it'll be on like the screen at the end or whatever. And if you're on podcast app, just scroll down a little bit. Actually, I didn't put it on the podcast app because you didn't give me the initial thing. So it's not a podcast app. It's only it's a YouTube exclusive. So
Yes.
go watch it on YouTube and all of it. And if you want more of my thoughts on something, I'm going to probably record another episode of the Comic Boy Show at some point because I've got a few things, like a few ranking things I want to do. I would have done them here. The problem is you haven't watched any of the things I'm going to rank, so it doesn't really you wouldn't provide anything, and you would have just gotten bored and you would have started hating on animated stuff. So I have to do that separately so that you don't hate on animated stuff until after I post it. But no, I promised everyone a DC ranking, a sitcom ranking. I'm going to do all that stuff, but I've got to find the energy to do that. So hopefully, maybe I'll record that before I oh my God, we're almost at 2 hours. I'm done now. This is it. We're done. Okay.
All right.
Stop listening to us now. People go have lives and
Go
stuff.
go live your life.
Yes. Okay.
Go watch
Bye-bye.
Oppenheimer.
And Barbie, I guess.
Yes.